All right, so 2 choices tonight. One I got from Buc-ee's. So Buc-ee's has upped their game. I don't really know. It's a Maker's Mark. I think I'm going to smoke this one, and if it's bad, I bought a couple backups. It's
got the wax seal.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited about it. So during the Mavericks Western Conference run, the very first game that they won in the playoffs, I was smoking a Punch cigar from Buc-ee's. Okay. And it just so happened that they were on sale, so I bought 2. Well, they played back-to-back that night, or the next day, so I smoked one the second night, and they won. So from then on, every time that I smoked a cigar, they won. So I had to go buy those Punch cigars.
It's your lucky cigar.
It's my lucky cigar. Ooh, that's good. So one of the things I do like about the glass cases is when you open them, the smell, it's very strong. I like it. I'm not a typical dark cigar guy. Not really sure I'm going to like this one, but this is I don't even know what it's called. It's kind of hard to read. The Burroughs Cigar Company.
Mm-hmm.
The Burroughs Cigar Company. Hand-rolled in the Dominican Republic. Okay, we'll try it. See what we think about it.
We'll have to review it at the end of the podcast. See what you thought.
I have gone past the flavor version of cigars in my life. Whoa. By the way, I like those cigars. Those are good ones.
Yep.
Aragosa, is that what it's called?
Aganorsa.
It's a good one.
Which is the Olivia Serie V's are also Nicaragua.
Mm-hmm.
And so is the Macanudos.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Put this over here, just trying to adjust a little bit.
I feel like we're in sports purgatory right now.
Yes.
You're an NBA fan, though.
NBA fan, but, I mean, it's the NBA All-Star game this week. I was watching it before we came over here.
I did watch Daytona. Well, I think it might have just wrapped up at 2 rain delays.
It was on. I did not watch it. For whatever reason, my son today wanted to watch movies after church, so we kicked on the 1 or 2 times that I enjoy having HBO is when you can just turn on HBO Family, and you don't have to really worry about the movies that are coming on.
Right.
Because you can just flip it on, and I think he watched like Rio, and not a bad movie though. I forget that's not a bad movie. The one with the dogs, not The Secret Life of Pets, but the other one. It's like superheroes. I don't know. Kevin Hart's one of the voices.
Yeah.
And then the other one was Megamind.
Classic.
Good Will Ferrell movie, by the way. Not a bad one. He's also in trouble though, so he got grounded from his iPad. It's definitely becoming addicted to it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Did you watch the or see clips from the SNL 50th year concert?
I saw clips of it. It's on tonight, isn't it? Or was that on last night?
It's already been on. I want to see it. I'm going to. I need to watch the whole thing.
It's on my YouTube channel.
Pretty good.
It's on my YouTube, like for later or whatever.
Yep.
It's kind of dry. Cigar's kind of dry. It didn't sit in my humidor very long. That one's been in there 3 months.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's a little dry. Flavor's good though. Could have stood in there a little bit longer. If I'd have been able to keep it in there, it would have been all right. Yeah, sports purgatory. That was a great terminology there for that one. With the Mavericks doing what they did there at the end, I'm still not over it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a buddy checking on me regularly. He's like, "Are you okay? Did you see what happened to the Mavs coach last night?"
No.
Darren Armstrong got arrested last night for beating up his girlfriend right in front of the Mavs Center. He texted me and was like, "Hey, and we thought you were in rough shape." I hope she's okay, by the way. We probably shouldn't laugh about that, but I think it's because I feel a betrayal to Dirk. I've really been thinking about this, analyzing my sports hate for it. I feel like it's a betrayal to Dirk. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, did him wrong because he wanted to be here.
It's going to burn fast. I can feel it.
Yeah, I'm not, like I say, not a big enough NBA fan to be watching games right now, so I had Daytona on today. Generally, if I'm working or something on a Sunday afternoon, I'll have NASCAR race on.
That's good background noise.
It is. And then, if something happens, they're going to holler, and you can look up at the screen, But I was looking at the lineup on the Daytona today, and I was like, my goodness, I know about 10 drivers.
I don't know any of them. Does
feel
Jeff
like
Gordon still race?
No. That was a long time ago.
Earnhardt Jr.?
No.
That's
what I mean.
I'm
Like
all out.
Some of the ones that have been around for a while. I mean, it's like Allmendinger's still in there. Joe Nemechek, Brad Keselowski.
I did think about gambling on it, but
it's not on the app.
is it not on the app?
No,
I did see some. I did see some racing on there. Well,
Yeah.
it may not have been the Daytona. It may
No,
have
they
been
do F1.
Okay. I did not. My gambling is doing really well, right? So the last 4 I've done on the NBA have hit. The problem was I didn't realize that they were running a promotion at the time, so it's like the fake. I didn't realize I used the promotion money. I thought I was using my money, so it wasn't like I hit like $218, and then but it was promotion cash, which just sucks.
Yeah, it won't give you the actual real money. It gives you gambling money.
Which is fine. I mean, it's for me, it's just an entertaining thing. It keeps me engaged.
Yep.
Done really well with the Mavericks actually since Luke has been traded.
Yeah,
it's easy to pick.
I've lost every basketball bet I've tried to make. Every time I say I'm not going to do it again, so I probably won't. Just have to wait for September for football.
I'm interested to see how baseball plays out. I'll
try that.
I'm gonna try it, especially since I do like the Rangers too, and I'm not a bandwagon fan. I was a fan long ago.
Yeah.
So fun fact about me, I went to one of Nolan Ryan's perfect games.
Okay.
Maybe no hitter, can't remember, at the old Arlington Stadium in like 1994. My dad took me, and the only reason I remember that is because I had one of those miniature bats, and I remember jumping up and down and looking at my bat in the light, and I'm like, this is the greatest day ever.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what was happening in the game.
The first game I ever went to was in the old Arlington Stadium. So we're on our 3rd Ranger Stadium. If you don't make us feel old, but they were playing the Mariners, and Ken Griffey Jr. was playing. I remember that.
That's whew.
Yeah, we had 2 outdoor stadiums, and we finally in Texas in the summer have an indoor stadium.
Have you been to the new one in the summer? It's nice.
It is.
It's really nice. We went last year in the
I like
middle
how they
of
tell
July.
you the temperature.
Yeah,
When they're doing the pregame stuff, and they'll say, and it is 72 degrees, and everybody cheers.
Well, because those people who scalded their skin
those
on
left
the bleacher
field,
sheets,
those left field
bleacher
bleachers.
seats. Yeah,
Those left field bleachers right in the sun. I'll tell you what.
and it's so my son's birthday is on the 2nd of July. So this year we went on his birthday, and it literally we went in shorts and t-shirts, and we were cold inside.
Yeah.
Because it literally was 72 degrees.
Have you ever been to an opening day?
Mm-mm.
I haven't either.
We're always in school.
It's a bad time for me too. Like it's March 27th this year.
Yeah, you're not going.
Like I was just telling you, that's big time wrap up time for me. So, but I do want to go sometime.
See, we're right in the middle of the end of track season right there. This might be the worst start to a track season I've ever had because of weather.
Oh.
I mean,
being able to practice.
And being able to practice, and then like not just that, but we now have a cold weather policy, which I don't know if that's new to all districts, like because now there's a heating policy too, a heat policy. But like if it feels like 25 degrees, basically you can't go outside. Well, I mean, around here, if it's 38 degrees and the wind's blowing, it's going to feel like 25. So we're supposed to go outside tomorrow. I doubt we'll be able to. We've already canceled the meet last week. We'll probably cancel it this week because it's just too cold.
Yeah.
And the UIL moved everything up 3 weeks this year. So they moved the state track meet up 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And the problem is it's great timing as far as like the weather because it's not too hot in Austin because that's where they run it down at UT. But the problem is it's too cold at the start of the season.
Yeah.
And you can't go outside. And it's like track is an outdoor sport.
Right.
Like you can run it. There's a lot of indoor meets, but like I need my kids to be putting in 5 to 12 miles at this point in the season, and we're barely at 3 on a regular, just because there's just not enough space in the indoor that we do have. I mean, we have an indoor practice facility, but baseball's fighting over it, softball, boys soccer, girls soccer, boys track, girls track, off-season football. It's just a battle of who can get in there first, essentially.
My middle daughter did cross country this year.
Oh, good. That's good for him.
Yeah, she did great. I think the last couple of meets.
What was her time?
I don't know. She was coming in like in the 40s out of 250.
Yeah, but that's a 6A district. That's not bad at all.
Well, and she's 7th grade. She's running against everybody. So
yeah, that's not bad at all. And for those that don't know, like cross country is definitely a team sport. Like it's really hard to win a cross country meet as an individual because you just have to have a little bit of luck, but also have a lot of endurance, and that's not typical, right? Be able to run them. I think theirs is 1.5 miles, maybe 2, depending on what size school she ran with. But I mean, like, there's kids still putting in at like 4, like under 5-minute miles paces for 3 miles in high school. It's crazy, man. The first year that we had a kid win a state championship was in the 800. He ran it in, I believe it's 1:58. Okay, so an 800 is 2 laps around track, 1 minute 58 seconds, and that thing, his record that was in 1A. So there's kids that are running in the 140s now.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
You want to hear my 800 story?
Yes,
so,
I love that race, by the way.
I hate it. So the longest race I ever ran was a 400. I was around a quarter. So I'd run the 200 and the 400, and I'd do a mile relay. That was my 3 events. And I did not have any pace. In 800, you have to have some pace. So Coach Walker, I think it was probably a sophomore, and he said, all right, you're going to run the 800 this. I'm like, okay, here we go. Well, I've never run it before. So I just took off running my quarter.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And I had everybody by 60 yards whenever we finished that first lap. And I came in dead last.
Yeah, you died.
I rounded that next corner, and I don't know how I finished the race from that point, because you know how when you run a quarter, hit that wall, that last 100 yards, and you're done.
And it's a hard wall too, and you can definitely tell the kids that are just like that haven't trained at all. And it's hard because like my freshmen, a lot of times they're gung-ho to just run this race. I'm like, no. Like, we've practiced these times over and over and over. Like, we're running 200 meters at this amount of time, and depending on what their time trial says. And so there's a lot of like strategy that goes into it. And if you have a couple of kids that can really run, especially distance runners, and they can work together, like, it makes such a huge difference. Like, if you can run, like, for example, race strategy, if you go like, my hands are kind of weird, but like if you're running right behind another person and that person is breaking the wind, well, they're taking hundreds of seconds off of their time every time that they're running in front. So if you can kind of get towards the back of the pack and let that wind just be broken off of you, you'll have more energy at the end of the race. And kids don't really understand strategy that, right? At the first,
So yeah, I didn't run the 800 very well. My sister was a distance runner. And she did.
Does she still run?
No. But she ran all the long stuff, 3,200 and stuff like that.
I tried, but I was not good at it.
No, and that's what gets me about Brianna, my middle daughter. She's a distance runner. I could never do it. Good luck.
And that's one of those things
they
too.
Send them off, around here it's country, right? So they send them off in a field.
Yeah.
Like, see you when you get back.
Yeah. We used to run down to from the high school, you just run, and it was exactly 1.5 miles down and 1.5 miles back when we were in school. Just run down from the high school there. So yeah, there's nothing going on in sports. I think pitchers and catchers report next week. Yeah. So I'm excited about the Ranger season.
We're a month and a week away from opening day, so that's we'll get by the next month.
You listen to the fan?
Yeah.
Did you see Bassick is leaving?
No.
On the KNC? Yeah.
Oh.
But he's going to just do the Rangers broadcast.
Oh.
I mean, I love the KNC Masterpiece. They're one of my favorite shows of all time.
He's one of my favorites.
And but Bassick added into that. It was a great trio. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, what they do with that particular show.
Well, they were a show before him, right?
So. Right. They were the night show, and then they got shifted to the noon hour.
Took him out of G-Bag and put him in there.
It was a great. I mean, they're great.
Yeah.
A great show. I love it a lot. Good guys too. At least seem to be. You know.
He looks just like our other friend with my same name.
Mm-hmm.
So we went and saw them there at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Really?
Close by. This is like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so he texted me. He's like, "Hey, they're up there." I was like, "Sure." So we went up there, and I was like, "You've got to go get a picture with him."
Did he?
Yeah. I was like, "You've got to walk up to him and be like, if somebody walks up to you and looks a lot like you, you're just gonna do a double take, right?" And so he did it. A double take. They took a picture together. Basic's actually like an inch or two taller. So.
Really?
Yeah.
And he's tall.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He looks just like him. Like they could be brothers. It's kind of funny.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. But yeah, I'm ready for baseball to get back.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I will listen to most of the games. I don't watch many unless they wind up on a Friday night, like Friday Night Baseball, kind of ESPN. I'll watch them just because it's a Friday night. I'll actually sit down and watch a baseball game. And we'll go to maybe 3 a year. We don't go to a ton. I know a lot of people go to a lot more games than that every year. We'll hit about 3 games a year. I'll watch them if they're on like a Friday night or Saturday Night Baseball or something. Otherwise, I'm usually listening.
Right.
If it's middle of the day, I don't care. I'll shut my office door just because I hate having earbuds in and turn on the radio broadcast and listen while I work.
I'm really excited that they're going to broadcast it over TV on just the regular old antenna. I'm really thinking about cutting all of our services off. I'm serious. And just having the antenna. I mean, we have so many that we have Max, we have Netflix, we have Hulu, Disney. But I think because we have DirecTV Stream for just local news, but I'm just really thinking do away with it and just buy some antennas. Because my kids just watch YouTube.
Mm. Yeah.
My son really likes watching Meat Eater.
We would have to keep Disney because of all the Marvel
stuff.
But
Disney Plus.
Right.
Keep that, and then you have ESPN Plus and Hulu Plus, or Hulu at least. Yeah. But 99% of the time, that's all they're watching. They're not even. Mm-hmm. I'm not watching local news or whatever.
The problem is you have the one show on that network you watch, so you got to keep it, and it's for a lot of them now. Netflix just went up to $25. I remember when they were 10 and $12.99. Now they're
and you could share passwords.
Yeah. So they just went up to 25. So, and I don't think we actually watch anything on Netflix right now, so we might kill that one. But the other ones, it's I watch one show on Paramount Plus, and it's $5.
Man, I love that station.
It's $5.99, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to kill $5.
Somehow I have an account, but I don't pay for it. It just showed up on my thing one time, and I was like,
DirecTV. You get it with that?
But it's on the app.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. But it just showed up one day, and I was like, okay. So,
yeah.
And every once in a while, the TV channels change, and I'm like, yeah, I definitely didn't watch that show. So, I don't know. So, a gentleman named Jonah.
He was not named Jonah. It was too good to be true.
I know it was.
The news reported it, though. They're
they did. I saw it.
They did. They
saw it.
They said his name was Jonah, but this guy, I forget his name now. It's a very South American name. Anyway, Adrian, maybe something like that. I don't know what his name is. It's not Jonah, but he got swallowed by a whale in a kayak, and that's a cool story. But it's even cooler if the dude's name is Jonah and then gets spit back out. So
yeah.
And what I love about that story, because I did actually dig into it and read it, is all of the marine biologists and scientists are well, average humpback whale, their throat's only the size of a household pipe. So, I mean, they can't swallow you. I'm like, dude, he got swallowed by a whale. I don't think the guy cares that he didn't actually get swallowed into the stomach.
Probably a good thing he didn't get swallowed just by the whale.
Yeah. He still was inside of a whale going down.
Yeah. I saw the video. I thought it was fake.
Yeah. I've seen it before off the coast of California. This is off the coast of Chile, but I saw one time off the coast of California. Apparently they just come up chasing a school of fish, and they come all the way to the surface and grab a kayaker every once in a while, stand up paddleboard, something.
What a way to go.
What an adventure.
Yeah.
He did. He had the whole, the requisite of what you would expect as, I'm, rethinking my life. The choices I've made to this point.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't That's crazy. That's a crazy. And Elon has his 13th child.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
He hasn't said so yet. I forget her name too. I should know. I should make notes or something. But she is used to write for the Babylon Bee.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I mean, he's all about procreating. He's got
obviously.
He had 5 with one, and then I think he has 3. He has 12 kids at least.
Ashley St. Clair.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so he has 12 kids with at least right now with 3 women. So I think 5. I think there's a set of twins and 3 with his first. Then Grimes, I think he has 3 with her, and that's X. Lil X is Grimes is his mom. So that's 8. So he must have 4 with someone, the third one, and then maybe this 13th.
Jeez. I guess
if you're the richest guy in the world, there's got to be
$400 billion.
There's got to be some kind of agreement, like kids set, you know. But the story was saying that he hasn't, that she's been trying to contact him for 5 months, and he hasn't acknowledged. So she has a lawyer and everything. But she said in the interview she's confident that he will do the right thing and like everything's fine. And he went on X and said he's going to take a little break from social, supposedly to get Grok 3.0 up and running this week. But that's probably exactly what it is. But
who knows?
He's got a few things on his plate right now.
Yeah, and one other more current event thing before we hop into some of the other stuff. Egg prices. Are you following this story at all?
I'm seeing it, but I haven't bought eggs in a little bit. We bought like 5 dozen a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we still got about 1.5 dozen left. And then my mother-in-law has on her where she lives, people with chickens. She brought us another dozen. So
yeah. It's one of those things where it's a supply and demand thing. Yeah. And it gets so, I get so.
The meme, the good one. I mean, there's a ton of them, but the one I like is, well, the egg shortage is caused by chickens with bird flu. Surely this will fix it, and it's a chicken with a mask on.
No.
Surely this will flatten the curve and fix it.
Oh, flatten the curve. We're not going to talk about COVID today.
No.
But yeah, it's more of a supply and demand thing.
Right.
And I don't understand why they politicize this stuff. I mean, I do know, but it's like...
Well, because he ran on reducing inflation, and one of the... Everybody always talks about going to the grocery store and your milk and your bread and your eggs. That's the trifecta of grocery store inflation. And so now that eggs are super expensive, it has nothing to do with Trump or any of his policies. But, and I don't know that I've seen anyone saying that he's the cause of it or anything like going that far, but it is, they're going to poke at it.
Yeah.
You know. And it'll be a metric. You'll see when the campaign rolls around. You heard it here first, y'all. You will see when Joe Biden left office, this was the price of eggs.
Yeah.
And then they'll say 1 month into Trump's term, this was the price of eggs. Somebody will bring it up.
It just seems...
I think it'll correct itself.
Oh, for sure. And it always does. Even after COVID, it did.
Yeah.
And that was the price of everything.
Right.
I have noticed in the store, the local Walmart, that everybody seems to, like, they seem to be showing the price cut thing more and more. Like, it's more noticeable. And maybe I'm looking for it, and that may be the case, but it seems to be noticeable.
Well, I'm sure businesses are going to take advantage of the climate. You have a government where the news story every single day is cutting expenses and trimming fat and, you know, tightening the belt. And so I can see any company wanting to exploit that and ride that wave of marketing and say, hey, we're cutting prices too, you know. And people are like, oh, prices are getting lower. I'll go buy more stuff. Because volume solves a lot of problems.
That's true. So where do you want to start?
Wherever. Pick it.
I want you to explain to me why the gold standard is a bad idea.
We're going to start with the heavy hitter. All right. It's easier to explain. It's very complicated. And I don't think we should get too in the weeds on the podcast on the gold standard. But the reason I called it a red herring for boomers, and if you're a boomer listening, I don't mean anything by it, It's just that's usually the age demographic where you hear people saying, well, we need to go back to the gold standard, because they were alive when we were on the gold standard. Because we actually left it back in like 1934, but remnants of it remained all the way through 1971, and it officially died with Nixon in 1971. So if you were alive back then, plus gold standard goes away completely. It was a partial gold standard up until then, but goes away completely in 1971, and then you have crazy inflation through the 70s. So it looks like, oh, we got rid of the gold standard, and look what happened. If you look at history with a broader lens, a bigger picture, you'll see that on the gold standard, inflation was more volatile than it was when we were off. So if you look at the period of time, which is not a very long period of time, basically about 50 years, where most of the world, up until the precursors to World War II and after the Great Depression, so roughly 1880 to 1930, most of the world was on a gold standard. Inflation was wildly volatile then, more so than it was later, and more so even if you include the wild inflation of the 70s. There was still more inflation from 1880 to 1930 whenever we were on the gold standard. So what the gold standard was, it ties all of the U.S. dollars to actual physical gold. And so the United States and other governments have to set the price of gold for that to work. And so here's the very first fallacy of why going back to the gold standard won't work. Because when we first got on this, the price of gold, the United States set about 20, there's a decimal, but about $20 an ounce. Okay. Coming out of the Great Depression and going into World War II, around 1933-34, they reset the price to $35 an ounce. And so here's the problem.
Any particular reason why it was that amount?
That's what they needed to be able to spur the economy.
Okay.
Because if you tie it to physical gold, then you have fewer tools to stimulate the economy. So the gold standard did not cause the Great Depression, but the gold standard kept us from coming out of the Great Depression faster.
Okay.
Because you don't have the monetary tools to get out of a recession or out of a depression whenever you're tied to something that you have to physically dig up out of the ground. So when they did that, and so people think, well, if we tie it to the gold standard, it'll keep runaway inflation in check, because it'll keep the Fed from just printing money.
Okay.
Which quantitative easing, QE, that's printing money, which also helps spur the economy, puts an injection of capital into the economy, but it also is a trigger for inflation. So you have to use it very sparingly. You have to be careful. But
that that logically makes sense.
Yes. The problem is like take whenever we were on the gold standard and they bumped the price of gold from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce. You just did the same thing.
Right.
Because let's just say you have 10 gold bars, and let's say each, not bars, but you have 10 gold pieces and they're each one of them are an ounce. You have at $20, a cigar got you.
Yeah. The water and the cigar got me at the same time, and I was trying not to cough over you.
So here's an example. The premise is, and the reason people are pushing the gold standard today is because they say if you tie something to something with physical intrinsic value, like gold, then it helps with the runaway inflation, because you can't just print money because you don't have gold to back up that money you're printing.
Correct.
But for the gold standard to work, the government has to set the price of gold. And that's what they did. Like I said, the government set it at $20 an ounce, and they set it at $35 an ounce. They did the same exact thing. So imagine you have 10 gold pieces and each one of them is an ounce. You have $200 worth of gold. Then the government says, nope, today that's now $35 an ounce. Now you have $350 worth of gold. So your same 10 pieces of gold used to be $200.
Now it's
$350. You just pumped cash into the economy again. Yes, it is tied to something physical, but if you can just set the price arbitrarily of that physical thing, you don't accomplish anything.
Okay.
Not to mention, historically speaking, inflation was wilder whenever we were on the gold standard, We got off of it in 1971. Inflation went crazy. We had the Carter years. Then Reagan is elected in 80. You get a new Fed chairman in 1979, Paul Volcker, which, hey, that guy got some things I really like that he did, a lot of things I don't like that he did. So he was a Fed chairman from 79 till right before Reagan left. I think that was an 8-year term, so until 87-ish. But don't quote me on that, but around that time. But from 1980 to 82, without being on the gold standard and with using interest rates as the main key to fix monetary policy and to bring us out of that recession, we came out of that recession in basically 2 years, got better and better, and then you have Reagan winning in a landslide and the economy booming by 1984. So you have all of the bad 70s, but in 2 years, Paul Volcker and Ronald Reagan, without being tied to a gold standard, were able in 2 years to bring us out of a recession, and the economy was booming by 1983, 1984. You just have more tools than if it's tied to physical gold. Plus, like, again, you have to go back to the United States setting the price of gold. You're essentially still interfering in the economy.
Right.
Like, you're not getting away from that. The other thing is that no one else uses the gold standard anywhere in the world. And so, and that's one of the reasons it collapsed. The reason that Nixon had to nix it, had to kill it, is because so many countries started trading in their dollars in the, as we got into the 1970s for gold. And then when Great Britain said, okay, we want gold, here's all of our American dollars, we're like, well, we have to get off the gold standard and go to fiat money, which means that the money's worth whatever the government says it's worth.
So what backs our dollar now? You said interest rates a while ago.
Well, the interest rates are what they use to affect monetary policy. That's the main tool that they have. Like, for example, when inflation goes crazy, they raise rates.
Okay.
Because it stifles people buying stuff, because it slows down the economy, because stuff gets more expensive.
Okay.
It slows down capital. That's the easiest way to say it. So that's what rates do. What gives a dollar value is that you think it has value. Like,
okay.
If I say...
So there's nothing physical that backs it?
No, not at all.
Not even oil?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, if I say I want to buy this from you, you say I want $20 for it. You're basically saying that's worth $20. That's the reason that all of the... I'm going on a rabbit trail here, but not really. That's the reason all of the Bitcoin stuff is fake.
Yeah.
It's the lesser fool theory.
Mm-hmm.
Means if you can get somebody, like you see this on Facebook Marketplace every once in a while, somebody will put something on there for way too much money, and you'll see people commenting, it's not worth that, it's worth this, it's worth this, it's worth this, But if somebody will give you that,
then you need to buy it.
Yeah. Then if there's always a lesser fool that will pay more than what you paid for it, then something grows in value. And that's exactly what, like Bitcoin and all these Doge coins and things are all tied to.
So that's the whole pump and dump.
Yes.
Kind of.
That's why people
policy.
who really hold like coins like this, that's why they'll tweet the rockets and stuff and be like, go buy it. You need to go buy it. It's multi-level marketing. Like, the more people who go out and buy those coins, it drives the more price
value
up.
it is. Yeah, I got
drives
you.
the price up, then they can go sell theirs.
Gotcha.
So our money has a value because someone says it has a value. Like if I was trying to sell you that leather chair and I was like, I want $300 for it, and you're like, okay, here's 3 Benjamins, I'd be like, no, I want gold. I could say that, but no, I'm going to take the $300 bills.
Gotcha.
Because I know I can go buy something else with that.
And that's my problem with buying a house. I don't feel like anything's worth what I think it should be worth.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I look at the place and I'm like, yeah, this is not worth $400,000. And like, I struggle with that, because if I think long term, I'm like, well, maybe one day it'll be worth that, but then also maybe someday some guy's going to be like, no, this definitely is not worth that same amount of money you paid for it.
Right.
And it's hard for me to wrap my brain around that at times, because money is really just fake.
It is.
And how do you How do you explain that to me without, you know what I'm saying? Like, how does that doesn't make logical sense to me sometimes. And I struggle with that.
It has value because there's so many people who says it has value. Now, if we went out and made our own currency, and started saying, hey, this is the new Trump dollar or whatever. If you don't get, tens of millions, 100 million people to say Trump dollars have money or have value, then it doesn't work. The only reason the dollar works is because not only everybody in this country, but the whole world views the dollar as having intrinsic value. Like actually that dollar is actually worth something as it sits right there.
Gotcha.
In front of you.
Makes sense. I mean, it makes sense, but then it doesn't make sense at the same time.
Do you see we're getting rid of the penny?
I saw that. Well, they said, Trump said it was like, it's like 2.5 cents for every penny that's made. And then
saves $160-something million or something.
So that's a great transition. What's the craziest thing you've seen Doge? Can I go first?
Yeah, you can definitely go first.
So the one that I saw this week, I pulled it up because I wanted to make sure I read it exactly how it was tweeted. Well, I said I had it up. Oh, here we go. The $9.7 million to U.S. Berkeley for the development of the cohort of Cambodian youth with enterprise and driven skills.
See,
like,
if
what
it's got
does
too many words in the title,
what does that even mean?
Yeah, it's got too many words in the title.
So, like, and they just keep like $1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia. $20 million for fiscal federalism in Nepal. $29 million to strengthen the political landscape of Bangladesh.
The problem is, though, like, I care so little about those. Like, those are the crazy ones. But it's like, it takes so many of those. Like, yes, I'm for getting rid of them, but it takes so many of those to make a difference. Like, you want to look at like the big stuff. The problem is the big stuff is just paying interest on our debt from paying for all that stuff for decades.
Well, and the problem that I have is we're just sending so much money elsewhere.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit last week about how much $1 trillion generally, like how much it actually is.
Yeah.
But we didn't do anything for Maui when that place burned to the ground. We didn't do anything for North Carolina. And these are just recent ones. I mean, I would be willing to bet you could go to parts of New Orleans where Katrina hit and it's still devastated. Yeah. And that was 2005. I was going to say 7. So 2005, 20 years ago. And we just continue to just send stuff for the craziness outside of the world. And I've also kind of started really thinking about the US aid stuff, AID. And I've stopped saying US aid because it's not US aid. Mm-hmm. It's USAID. And that was something that really kind of triggered me this week when I'm like, man, people, like, I've given to the Red Cross. I know this may be a bad example, but like, I've given to the Red Cross before. And it's like, so does that money not go to those people that we generally give money to? And I know that's maybe a bad example. But if our federal government is literally spending so much money elsewhere, mm-hmm. like, and then we send $750 to North Carolina or Maui. I think that was
the same thing for Southern California, for LA.
Correct.
Say, here's your $700 check. Okay. Like, I mean, hey, money's money, but it's so small compared to billions sent to Ukraine.
And I can't remember. That's what I was about to say. Pockets. They sent $170 billion and $100 billion of it didn't make it.
Yeah.
So how many times does that happen?
Yeah. Those are the ones I'm talking about. Those are the big ones. That makes a difference. You do that a few times and you're getting close to making some change. But
it goes back to what we talked about with the election. It's baby steps.
Yeah.
Like that $29 million, that's okay. You could fund a whole like that's one school district in the state of Texas. Now a mid-sized one, that's a mid-sized school district that could get a lot of money and do a lot of difference.
What has me being negative about it, not that I'm negative like I'm against it, but still like jaded, I guess is a better word, is that behavior's more important than these cuts. Like, these cuts will make a difference. That's great. But if it doesn't continue, like if you get someone else in office in 3.5 years from now, 4 years from now, who just spends it all again, then you're right back.
We're right back, yeah. And that's concerning to me.
It's gotta continue. So,
well, and I also saw, as much as I like what Elon's doing, and as much as I like what Trump is promoting him to do, sometimes he comes off as insensitive to certain areas.
mm-hmm.
I don't really have a great example, but when he, like, apparently the whole political thing was not true. Like, apparently as people started digging into it, it was like,
I think that one actually probably was true. I think the spin on it sounded good.
Yeah.
Now there was one, we don't have to go into all of them. There was one like $15 million one where it was like the wrong country, but that's okay. But the Politico one, they're like, no, it's just all these government. I don't know. Like, I think that was some spin,
right?
Because what they were basically saying is like, this wasn't government money going to this. It was just all these government employees paying for their own subscriptions. But then you saw some backstory on that, and there weren't enough subscriptions to cover that amount if you just take the Politico subscription price.
Correct.
So like that had some truth to it. The Democrats had some good spin on it, but it didn't add up in the end.
Well, and then like I also am like I'm paying attention to like the reaction of people in certain areas. So for example, Washington DC this week, I don't know if it's been on your feed, but I don't know if it's just because like I've been looking at the DOGE spending and stuff like that. But then all of a sudden, boom, the real estate market in DC is just
plummeting.
Bonkers.
Yeah.
Bonkers. And so like that tells you right there that some of this stuff is really effective. And some people are really scared. Mm-hmm. Scared enough to where they're listing their houses because they're moving. And it's more, so I think they said 70,000 federal employees accepted the retirement packages
so far,
which saved hundreds of billions of dollars. And it's more than 70,000 homes that are being listed. Mm-hmm. And these are not your regular everyday houses. Now, I understand the real estate market in DC is way higher than here.
Right.
But you're talking about $2, $3, $4 million homes are being listed. And so it's causing this ripple effect. That's what I'm talking about. Like when you see these groups of people who are literally trying to leave an area, why are you trying to do that? It's not any different than the pardons. Mm-hmm. Like that's almost like a guilty conscience right there. Like, okay, I got to get out of here because this place is not good, which everybody knew and everybody has known. Yeah. We just haven't said anything. And then then the videos have been like Elon's been tweeting them of the 2012 videos of Obama and Biden talking about cutting spending,
doing the same thing,
doing the exact same thing, and he was like, "Well, Obama would love Doge."
Yeah, that's what I mean. If I think the public support is there, you're going to have the tearjerker stories of people losing their jobs that are going to get put out there. Did you see the one about the park ranger?
No.
That was all over the socials today. It's a park ranger at one of the national parks, and he posted a picture there with his son and went through all the things like, I am the guy who talks about all of these Native American tribes. I am like my son's hero, junior ranger, because I get to be a park ranger, and like I'm also the guy who scrubs the toilets and fills the soap dispensers at the park. Like,
right.
I'm glad. And he's like, and now I'm out of a job. And I'm like, dude, every single person in this country who's ever lost their job from downsizing just says, cry me a river, build a bridge, and get over it. Like, you're not the first person to lose your job from downsizing, which essentially that's what this is. So you're going to have people on there who can come and give like their sob stories of, I was doing this great work, and one of my friends posted on one of the comments, and this is really, I resonated with this. He said, man, I love the national parks, and we do too. Like, we take big trips.
We do too.
Right behind you. You've seen it in my map of all the places we've been, and like road trips and things. We love it. I love the national parks, but my friend posted this. He said, not everything that I'm passionate about needs to be funded by the federal government. I like that the government has set aside national parks, and I would assume that they're not just firing everybody that works in the national parks. Like, you need people to run those and for those to be there, but maybe do you have too many? Was there some fat that could be trimmed there? And if you're someone who lost your job because you're in the quote unquote fat that could be trimmed, like, I do feel for you. But every other American citizen who's ever been through a downsizing and lost their job has been right there with you.
So let me ask you this. Would you be willing to pay an extra $10 a year or whatever for your membership to the national park to keep? Yeah, it seems relatively cheap if I remember correctly.
And that's my whole...
And the state parks are the same way.
That is my entire political stance rolled up into a nutshell, is that I want government spending money only on what government needs to spend money on. I have causes I believe in, and I'm totally fine with giving to those causes and charitable giving to those causes. Like, I don't need the government funding those things.
Right.
Because not only that, is like you see with school, like when the government funds something, they get to say how it's run. But I would much rather, like, one of the things, I'm passionate about is adoption and foster care, having adopted 3 kids out of foster care and many other foster placements we did not adopt. And we give money to those causes and we support those causes. And the government does too. And I'll say, like, we're not going to get into this. Maybe someday we will. But the biggest problem with the foster care system is that the government runs it. If it was run by who I believe should be running it, as a church, first of all, then you wouldn't have these issues. I mean, you just had a home in a town.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that.
I've driven past that thing 100 times because my wife's family lives out in that area, and I've seen the school bus dropping off the 10 kids. And they actually, years ago, when we were fostering, this is really going. We'll stop right here, but Texas outlawed group homes because there's so many problems with them, like that: abuse, neglect, and waste. And so that's why, like, we have 6 kids. Right now we would not be able to foster because it's limited to 6 per home. And that was part of that outlawing the group homes. Some of them got to stay, and I don't know the logistics of it, if they were grandfathered in or if they had to follow certain rules and they got to stay. But some group homes, you made a circle, you made a ring.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool.
I didn't know you could do that. I'm not going to have time to make a picture of it.
It's gone now. Yeah. You made a cigar smoke ring. And I don't know the logistics of that, but they basically, Texas got rid of all.
Any chance we caught that on camera? You know how many times I've tried to do that?
Maybe leaving. Oh, the big one probably got it.
Maybe we'll check it.
The wide shot. I don't know, but it's like flat though.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. Anyway, sorry.
No, I'm just saying, like, I think the problem with a lot of things that we love is that the government funds it. And so there's going to be a shift, but I'm fine with that shift happening and saying, hey, the government's not going to fund this stuff anymore. The government's going to fund stuff that we need, like, national security and like roads and things. Like, that's what we're going to tax you for. Because here's the thing, I would much rather be taxed less, the money that you are saying I have to give over, and leave me more money to give to the things I'm actually passionate about.
Yeah, it's such a dynamic shift, right, too, in the way not only that you and I think, because literally as you're talking about the fiscal policy a while ago, they were talking about the gold standards. You and I weren't even alive, and we're both in our 40s. Mm-hmm. And so this is such a dynamic shift. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I can't remember if you and I talked about it on the podcast. So if we did, we can skip over it. But literally, of the last 16 years, the Democrats have been in control for 12 of them.
Yes.
Did we talk about that on here?
No, but I was going to say that earlier too on a different topic. We talk. Gotta love it.
It's not. That's the first time that's ever happened, and I bet it didn't even pick it up.
Second time.
Second time. But the first time you couldn't even hear it. Somebody drove by past our studio.
We do live in Texas. It picked that up.
Sure. Are you? I don't know. We'll see. We're gonna have to leave it in there now.
Good cardioid microphones, but I'm pretty sure if you heard a truck with pipes on it. Anyway,
it's a big deal in my neighborhood right now, by the way, because somebody's starting their Mustang GTO early in the morning by remote start,
getting some,
and it has glass. It has glass packs on it.
Got the
It is so loud. It's so loud. But then I just kind of, good for you, bud. And then I go right back to sleep.
Yeah, I know.
At least he's going to work.
Like, you got to also think about the last Republican president was Bush, was W. Like, go back that far. And so, yeah, out of the last.
And that's our adult lifehood. Yeah. Like, that's our, like, I was thinking about, because my students were talking about presidents and Trump and some of the things he's doing and how this just seems so outside of the box. And I, being somewhat of a historian, I'm thinking, it's really not that far outside of the box. But then I'm thinking, Well, gosh, that's all most of your parents have known, because I'm about their parents' age or maybe even a little bit older. That's all your parents have known.
Yeah.
And that's part of like this whole idea of the political landscape shift of more of a Republican Democratic president, because he's talking about the same stuff that Obama talked about in 2008.
Right.
And it now resonates with the Republican Party.
That's what, we talked about that earlier on the podcast about, if you look at H.W. Bush, you can't say that Trump is that vein of Republican.
No.
So he ran as a Republican, but he really is an independent.
Correct.
It is fresh and it is new. And that's why a lot of those Republicans from that time period, like Cheney, don't like him.
Yeah.
He's not one of them.
But I wonder what that age cutoff is. Because any of the people that are in that age group that I know are huge supporters of Trump, which is very odd to me, because the things that he's talking about and the things that he promotes are not necessarily falling in that vein of the Republican Party.
Yeah, but the people that I know in that age group also complained about Bush and that he was a one world guy.
That's
and
true.
They didn't like that.
That's true.
Big spender, so it tracks. They were around for Reagan, and
That's true.
Reagan was the maverick that came in and changed things. I mean, he did hold political office before he was president, whereas Trump didn't. But he's an outsider still. I feel like Reagan was an outsider.
It's just a bizarre time we're living in.
Yeah.
Politically, landscape. I mean, heck, RFK and Tulsi were made it through the Senate this week.
2 former Democrats in the cabinet.
And again, I want to preface this by saying, like we talked about this last week, Trump doing Trump things. Like literally when RFK came out and was like, okay, these are the things that we're going to do. And everybody's like, oh no. I'm like, no, literally he said that they were going to do that. He said this is what we're going to do. They're talking about changing the vaccine schedule. They're talking about taking away food, which, by the way, please, God, if RFK, if you listen to this podcast, please don't take away Diet Coke. Please, for the love of God, don't take away my Diet Coke. Okay? I can't drink Coke Zero all the time. I mean, I'm trying to, because I read this week, some of those things that are in the ingredients that are in Diet Coke are on that list of things he's taking away.
My wife won't drink them.
Won't drink Diet Coke or Coke Zero? Any
of them, because it triggers her migraines. Any artificial sweetener does.
Yeah.
So if she has anything, it's real sugar.
I can't drink Coke Zero. I just, I know it's bad for me, but I know. But that's my vice. That's my vice.
What if they could make Diet Coke and it tasted the same, but it was like a fourth of the ingredients that are currently in it?
I'd try it.
Yeah.
I'd try it.
See, the thing is, I feel like with people like diehard Diet Coke people like you, because I know a few of you, my father-in-law is one as well. I feel like they just can't tell you that they changed it, because you'll definitely notice if they tell you.
Okay, so one time.
But if they don't tell you and they do change it, and it's like 5 ingredients now instead of 27 with all the chemicals, then and you're like, hey, great.
So one time, Buc-ee's has their own Diet Coke, and it's supposed to be made with cane sugar. And they brought it out, and my kids weren't, because our local Buc-ee's that we have, we're very, very blessed to have a Buc-ee's that we live next to.
Yeah.
And so
not everybody has a Buc-ee's in their town.
Yeah, and we do.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate.
We are.
And I'm on first name basis with a lot of the cashier registers there.
That's what I had breakfast this morning.
Oh, it's so good too.
Well,
it's so
now
bad
that my
for
oldest
me.
is driving, it changed. But when I had to take, because the high school is right next door.
Oh, that was bad news for you.
Yeah, I mean, we'd go every single day. So it's bad news for money. It's bad news for a lot of things. We were going to Buc-ee's every single morning.
But now that we have a Circle K, I like their Diet Coke better.
You cannot drive past a Buc-ee's and not stop.
Oh, I've had to stop. I've literally had to stop going there.
It's a Texas rule.
But they'll
take away your Texan card.
No,
if you drive past the Buc-ee's too many times and don't stop, they take away your Texan card.
I do stop way too much, to be perfectly clear. Like, it's hard for me not to stop by on the way here, because I don't know the advertisement rules of having it on camera. So I know, but like most of the time it's facing backwards.
It's true.
But my point in saying that,
you got to get some money from our cigar people, by the way, because we do advertise for them. This is a great cigar. Just by the way, I'm going to go ahead and review it, the Aganorsa Leaf, Connecticut. I like it.
This was below average. It was dry. I wonder if I left it in my cigar humidor.
Might get better.
It would get better. It was very, very dry. So it leaves that raspiness in your voice. Mm-hmm. That's what causes that raspiness. At least for me. But anyways, Diet Coke story. They brought out the Buc-ee's Diet Coke, not the actual Diet Coke. And I was like, what did y'all put in my soda? They're like, nothing. I'm like, did you put too much ice in this?
Oh, you have an ice ratio also?
Yes. You get the 44-ounce cup. You fill it to the ice to the lower rim, and then the rest is Diet Coke.
That's a lot of Diet Coke.
Brother, when I worked in the trucking industry, I would drink at least a 12-pack a day, equivalent to a 12-pack a day. I'd go to the local Scooters gas station, fill up my 44-ounce drink, and the lady would be like, all right, we'll see you at lunch. And I would go back at lunch and refill it because it was only a quarter. Refill it, and then I would drink at least 3 or 4 cans of it a day. Bad for you. Probably why I almost had a heart attack at 25 from stress and drinking too much Diet Coke.
He's just trying to help you out.
Trying to help me out, yeah.
He's trying to help you out.
I don't drink near as much as what I used to. I did consume way too much, and I probably still do.
Now you're just feeling the 20 ounce, not the 44 ounce.
Oh, I still feel the 44 ounce, but I maybe only do it once a day. But yeah, Tulsi getting it is a big deal. I saw Hegseth this week working out with the military. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal.
Yes.
Vance going to Germany and giving a great speech. I don't know if that was the G20 summit or the...
I like him. And so what I was worried about, the more I got to know him, after Trump picked him, I was like, who's this guy? It's like, oh yeah, he wrote that book that made a movie. Okay, yeah, I remember hearing that name. That's literally all I knew. So dove in like we all did. Like not all, but... Like
You're talking about Hegseth?
No, about Vance.
Okay.
Whenever Trump picked him back in the summer. And I was like, man, I really like this guy. And I found myself hoping that he didn't take a traditional vice presidential role and just never be seen again. Because like, this guy's sharp.
Yeah.
And like, you see him talking on to the pundits and the talking heads on the Sunday shows. And I'm like, this guy is sharp. Like, he should be out there. And I'm glad that he's out there. Just saying.
Well, did you see it was kind of in the shadows of X about him calling out that Twitter guy, the guy on Twitter who had very few followers, and he commented on Vance's thoughts on Catholicism and the Catholic Church. Uh-huh. And now my knowledge of Catholicism and the Catholic Church is very minimal. I know enough to have a conversation, but not enough to like have a debate with the vice president. Mm-hmm. But literally it was talking about he just responded to this guy in a very generous way, and how, he's actually working on some more thoughts on this, and he would post his comments at a later date. And then the guy responded to him, thank you, Vice President, for responding to me. That clears up some of my thoughts, and I really appreciate you doing that. And then he responded back to him saying, you're welcome. I'm trying my best. I'm just letting you know these are some thoughts, these are some things that are happening, and this is what we're talking about. And it was super fascinating. I didn't fully understand the topic that they were talking about. To me, that really wasn't the point. It was the point that there was a political discussion on X without screaming and yelling, without somebody cussing, and
with the vice president
of the United States,
not just being a hardliner saying I'm always right, but saying, no, I'm working on this.
Correct.
Like, that's new.
Yeah, and it's something that we haven't seen before. And I was really thinking about this too the other day. We were talking as my thought about the last 12 of the last 16 years has been a Democratic president. I was thinking about also like the role of social media. Mm-hmm. And then I was trying to think of like, when did social media really take off? Because like I was thinking about like, okay, 9/11, it wasn't around, right? So Bush's second term, not around. Then I'm thinking like it has to have been within the last 8 years. Mm-hmm. So like Trump's first election, it didn't play a huge role, but it was there. So it had to have been. Well, I mean, it had to have been Obama's second term.
Yeah. No, you had
because you had in
2016 with Trump, you had all the Facebook censorship and all of that. So it was alive and well and breathing then. So maybe you're talking about Obama like 2012 and forward.
Yes.
I got on Facebook in 2009.
But it was still in its infancy.
Yeah, I think Obama's second term is when you first started to see that being a part of the election and that being part of the marketing.
Because I don't remember when I quit my job in 2009, I don't remember social media being real heavy presence.
Yeah.
I had to have a college email to get onto Facebook, I think, at that time. And so that would have been about 2009,
Yeah.
2010.
So, but I think what did it is the iPhone.
Oh, for sure.
Because I think if
sure.
you're having to log into a browser to Facebook, they're not making the ad money they make than when it's right there in your pocket all the time.
So then there's your transitionary period. Yeah. And it's interesting to me too how we have a whole generation that is going to know. So like if you're 32 and under, you don't know life without an iPhone.
Yeah.
I remember the first time when at my first job in the trucking industry, I had 4 cell phones. I was just telling my students this story the other day. I had 4 cell phones because one was a 2-way radio that was to talk to dispatch and drivers. Another one was a BlackBerry that was just for my email. Then one was my personal cell phone, and then one was just a phone was just a landline phone, not a landline phone, but just a cell phone that you answered calls on. And then when I got my first iPhone, all of that was in one.
Yeah.
And this is game changing for me. I don't have to carry 4 devices anymore. And I was explaining that to my students, and they're like, "That's really weird, Coach Smith." I'm like, "Well, that's the truth. Like that's how you ran a business. You had to have all those things. It was a lot." But I think too, as things start to change, you're going to see. It'll be interesting to see how and what the next thing is. Because X isn't going away. Social media is not going away. Now, it seems that we're seeing a dramatic change in how they function. And we're literally seeing Elon tweet out changes within the government as they're happening live, which is...
And commenting on it,
is really odd. Because it's just the amount of information that we see that would have taken weeks, months to get out, now is out in seconds.
And you're able to hear from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
Directly.
But did you see they fixed the FAFSA website? You know, we were talking about last week about how they were talking about gender things, and within 30, somebody tweeted out, it was the Libs of TikTok X account. They tweeted out, "Hey, this has not been changed," and it was talking about it had like all the different members of whatever you can be, and within 30 seconds it was changed on the website.
Yep.
Like, how does that happen? How does that happen? Now, I'm not saying right or wrong. That's not my point.
Yeah.
But literally, somebody caught it, tweeted it out.
Somebody saw it and fixed it.
And somebody saw it and fixed it.
And somebody was having a conversation with the Vice President of the United States.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's wild. Yeah. It's wild.
It's a good thing.
It's access like we have never seen before. Yep. It's access like we've never seen before. Then the last kind of thing that happened this week was the Department of Education, Miss McMahon. Got there. Did you see Triple H in the background? Yes. He looked so out of place in that room. I don't want to say he looked uncomfortable.
She brought her muscle.
Yeah, literally. And listening to her speak, it was kind of interesting. It was much better than the ketchup lady. What was her name? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
Hunt. No. The lady that was in it last time, that was in the Department of Education for him last time. For Trump.
Betsy DeVos?
Yeah, wasn't she part of the ketchup dynasty?
I don't know about that.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong about that.
John Kerry's wife was a Hunt.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. But anyways, regardless, I think, she's been put on there as to close the Department of Education. Like, that's her.
I did hear her actually talk about this is how you're going to do it. And it doesn't mean the money's going away. There'll be block grants to the states. Like the things that we funded, like we talked about before, you can do this and not have a cabinet level position and cabinet level department.
Right.
Like you can still hold up the Supreme Court rulings and the laws that have been passed.
Right.
You can still send federal school dollars to the states to go out to the individual districts. Like you can do that without having a Secretary of Education.
Right. And that's something that we haven't seen before. Like one of the things that they were talking about that I was reading about that DOGE actually posted was like food money for school districts. Food doesn't actually come from the Department of Education. It comes from the Department of Agriculture.
USDA. That's RFK will be over that.
And so you're not losing that funding.
No.
And then I can't remember the special education one doesn't come from them either. It comes from another department. So then what is the purpose of the Department of Education?
I think that's
kind of the point, I think.
What do you do here?
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, well, if I don't have to worry about my kids' food.
And even the things that the Department of Education has overseen and funded is still going to be funded. Like there's still going to be a piece of the administration that does that. You just don't have to have a cabinet level entire department running it with a bunch of waste and a bunch of people you don't need.
Correct.
It can be run more lean than it has been, and that's all that's happening.
And it doesn't seem like it's going to go away. It's just going to be managed differently.
Correct.
So I'm a little bit more on the side of, okay, I can see where this is going to work. Whereas I was a bit hesitant. I mean, kind of like if they were to go after the Department of Finance, where you'd be like, oh, whoa, what's going to happen here? Let me pause for a second and look at it. And so what was this that you're talking about, Obama's library? I didn't see. I don't know.
Talk about that, but it's 10 seconds on that. Just a story that I ran across, and because it has to do with DEI. So when Obama's library is being built in Chicago, and it's just it's not going well, but it set the initiative for the contracts to have, like in some cases 35% or even majority minority ownership, workers, suppliers, and it's just not going well. And it's just an example of, is it a problem if you want to give those jobs and those contracts to minority owned businesses? That's not by itself a problem, but when that becomes your be all end all goal, like we are not going to pick the best contractor for this concrete to build this presidential library. We're going to pick the one that has the most diversity or the most minorities. Now they have concrete where the rebar wasn't spaced appropriately. It's cracked. There's that rebar showing. Like, I like going to presidential libraries.
I love going to those
even the ones that I didn't vote for, like Bill Clinton's in Little Rock. I've been to it a couple times, and it's just cool to see the stuff. You got the Beast. You got different things.
Well, just the amount of
you got the
gifts.
Monica Lewinsky room.
Yeah, Well, like the amount of gifts that they receive as a president just from foreign dignitaries is interesting to see.
It's a cool thing to see. So and we've been to Chicago a couple times, and like when this thing was finished, I could see us going back to Chicago and being like, okay, while we're here, let's go see. Man, I don't know if I want to go in the place.
Yeah.
It's a really tall, slender like building. But like if you're telling me that all the concrete's got cracked in it and the rebar wasn't done the right way, and now you're going to have to basically just redo it. And so the Library Commission is actually being sued by these contractors, saying now that they've been discriminated against.
Oh no.
Because like
I can see where this is going.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about it. If you want to read more about it, just Google it. It just was a fascinating read to see how bad that has gone. Simply because, and like everyone seems to be admitting now, because DEI was put as the number one priority for hiring contractors instead of just people who could do the job well.
Well, did you see Kid Rock's comments on the Super Bowl about DEI?
On Maher, on Bill Maher show.
Yeah, and Maher was just blown away by it. I mean, because
he's been good. He's called things. He called a spade when he needs to about the Democrats, and he's not been nice to them either, even though he is a complete liberal. But whenever Kid Rock said that, you could tell he was like, huh. And he was speechless for a minute, which is not common for Bill Maher.
Well, and here's the thing. We both talked about how we liked the Kendrick Lamar thing.
Yes.
So we're not looking at it from rose-colored glasses. Like, it was what it was. Like, it was a great performance.
Yeah.
But then, like, when I look back about it, like, Kid Rock's not wrong.
Yeah.
But does that mean that's a racially discriminatory comment?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
It's just, he performed for his group.
Right.
And I can like it or I can not like it. I can be entertained or I cannot be entertained. And then we can come on here and say, it really wasn't my taste. Okay, no big deal.
Yeah, and
But then it turns into this big thing of like, these groups of people are not.
Because everything's political.
But to me,
just like eggs.
It doesn't have to be though.
No.
Like, it doesn't have to be.
It's not actually, and it shouldn't be, but just like, the price of eggs, everything is political.
So one closing statement, and because I don't really want to go on a whole big rant, but school finance in Texas is complicated, man.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that I dive into it and the more that I look at things, my stance is not going to change because I do believe that we've underfunded our districts.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of resonating from a comment that Abbott sent out about how we receive more money than the allotted amount. of $6,100 or somewhere in that range, and how there's federal money that goes into it, then there's local money that goes into it. And his statement is not incorrect. However, it's inaccurate because a lot of that federal funding is going away because most of it was from COVID. Mm-hmm. And so we forget.
And it also included local fundraising.
Correct. Which we're not allowed to do anymore.
And not to mention, like, let's just compare apples and apples, Governor. Like, let's just talk about money from the state of Texas. Like, yes, there's federal money. Yes, but like you said, that was overstated. The fundraising was overstated. So that's a really inflated number.
Correct.
That was put out there. But let's just say, like, get back to brass tacks. It's $6,100, $65 being proposed versus $10,000 from state money.
Right.
Let's just go apples and apples.
And I don't understand why he can't see that.
He does. It just doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit the narrative.
It doesn't fit his narrative, what he's trying to push. So, like, he's going. It's spin. That's what all it is. And you've got to be able to see through it and see what's what. In this political climate. That's for both sides. You've got to be able to do that.
And the other thing too is we have to look at it from the eyes of the property taxes, right? So the idea that schools are being equally treated across the state is a fallacy as well, because a wealthier district has more money because their property taxes are higher. And I think people forget to, like, your district is run locally.
Right.
If you don't like the way your school district is going, then change it.
Yeah.
And that's possible. I mean, we've seen that in our own district that we live in.
Yeah.
I've seen that in many districts that I work in. Like, people didn't like the way the superintendent was doing something, then they got on the school board and they got rid of that superintendent.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you think of their political affiliation, that has nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. It has to do with, like, if you don't like the way your local district is run, change it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Right.
And if you take away that and you put them all in these private entities, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I did read that earlier in the week, he tweeted out something about how the ESAs are if they attend a charter school that accepts the ESAs, they cannot raise the tuition rates. But then that doesn't say anything to do with fees.
Oh, yeah.
Or
they'll find
a way,
an end road around it. Like,
and so
they're not going to take less money.
No, or they're not going to take equal money.
Yeah.
Regardless. So it's just interesting as all of this information is being tweeted out. Abbott seems to be, I sent you a message and said, he has to realize that he's not Trump.
Yeah.
And your response was, well, if he runs again, he's going to win.
Oh, yeah.
And I agree with that. And I think on here, I have said, like, 90% of what Abbott does, I agree with.
I don't follow as many or I'm friends with as many teachers as you are, but, like, when you see things on Facebook and every time it comes around, they're like, hey, Abbott's not good for public schools. And, like, I'm like, you can say that and you can push for that, but he's going to win. He's going to be the governor as long as he wants to be the governor. I think where we have a stake for helping this is, like, I don't think the current Senate Bill 2 is going to have any standing in the House, which it would have to get passed. So that's, if you want to fight, you want to push, I think that's where the fight is. The Senate's going to do whatever Abbott says, so that's a lost cause. But the House is where we can fight back and push for something better. So push there. Like,
right.
Don't put all of your efforts into trying to get Abbott not reelected, because to me that's a sunk cost. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think we have some ground in the House that we can use to get a better bill, because I do believe ESAs are going to happen. And I think a lot of people in the House who are against Senate Bill 2 have said they're going to happen, but not in the current form that Senate Bill 2 is.
In your conversations that you had when you were down there, what was the vibe?
I mean, that's what they flat out said.
Gotcha.
Was that this is going to be an education session. That's going to be the biggest changes that come out of this session is going to be about education. ESAs are going to pass, just not in the current form from Senate Bill 2.
Interesting. And that it's
but here's the thing: if they can't agree, and if they can't, both chambers can't come to the table and get something, then nothing will happen.
That's
what has happened every single time. Like, they can't get enough on their sides to get their votes, so nothing happens.
And that's government at its best.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen in the...
I was listening to one Texas...
Federal one.
Yeah, I was
federal
listening to one
landscape for...
Texas representative saying he was talking with a new representative that had just come up. They're brand new, first time serving. And he was like, I'm going to go against all these. He was a Republican. He said, I'm going to go against all these Democrats. They're wanting this. They're wanting this. He said, oh, son, let me tell you. The Democrats are not the enemy. The Senate is.
Yeah. Well, and he's not wrong.
And that's the way Texas politics works.
Yeah.
I mean, the Senate, the House is at odds with the Senate. And that's just the dynamic.
Well, and our local guy that's out in Hunt County, you know, he's walking a very fine line of trying to make sure. I don't know if you know which representative I'm talking about, but he's his X account and his Facebook account is very vague, and he's trying his best to not commit one way or the other, and because he was backed by Abbott, and they ousted a kind of sort of supporter of public school. I mean, but she really wasn't. She was just kind of got put there because she was the replacement of the person who got removed. And
that's a whole other story.
It's a whole nother story. But it's like you have to be he's skating around the topic, which is very fascinating too. Because I mean, I've seen him walk in the halls of our school. So like, where do you stand, bud? Like, what is the stance that you have?
Yeah, can you come out and support, but also if you are supportive of public schools, we also need you to keep your job.
Yeah.
So that is a tightrope that you got to walk.
It is. It's a very fine line. Yeah. And a lot of people don't see it that way, because I mean, he got elected by a very thin margin, and that margin was kind of not public school supported.
Yeah. Right.
So it'll be interesting, and nothing's going to happen this week in that vein of that. We're talking maybe after spring break, maybe, because that's when they'll start holding votes.
Right.
Because the session ends in what? June. So then,
and
then
like
he
180-ish days.
And then he can call them back in for special sessions if they don't get.
Like we do special sessions all the time.
Yeah.
So.
I think last time there was 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty crazy.
So good week. Survived the ice storm.
Yeah, we're gonna get a little more cold weather, and all of you up north. I know it's not cold. Wind chills are going to be in the negative, so give us some credit. We do get a little cold weather down here. So,
well, 4 years ago this week was when we had the Snowmageddon, because I saw the pictures pop up on my memories. That was the most snow I've ever seen here.
Below freezing for like a week.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a lot for us.
It's a lot for us. So
for us Texans to handle.
Stay warm.
All right, man. See you.